Have you ever been so mesmerized by something that you were left speechless? So stunned that you would just sit there and watch in awe and silence? Maybe it was something so good you couldn't believe it. Maybe it was something so utterly shocking you stared in disbelief. Maybe it was something so out of the ordinary, so different than what you would expect, much like we're all having to do now, that you simply didn't know what to do or how to react. I definitely think this paints a picture of what happened to the disciples that night of the Last Supper, as Jesus surprised them by washing their feet. But why, you might ask? Why were they so surprised? Jesus often did things out of the ordinary, did things against what anyone might expect, turned normal upside down. But then again, to look at it from the perspective of a disciple, they might say, well, he did these things to other people, not to us. Why does Jesus do this, and what is its significance? Jesus is being both host and servant. He shows them hospitality, which would be in line with cultural norms. Washing feet is what was done to welcome someone in. But he also shows them how to love by serving them. That is, being a servant to them. But Peter rejects. And why? Peter can't see him in both roles, as host and servant. At first, Peter says Jesus is building a relationship, not simply being hospitable, but loving him so much that he wants Peter to understand that what he is doing is showing him love, showing them his love. This is his last act with the disciples before he dies, the last chance for him to show them how much he loves them. It is a self-emptying act. Jesus builds a relationship with Peter and with the disciples and us through this act. If we are in a relationship with Jesus, then we are in a relationship with God. If we know Jesus, then we know God. What we get in this story is to view the events of the Last Supper from Jesus' perspective of knowledge and love. As this passage begins, we hear that Jesus knew his hour had come. Now, before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in this world, he loved them to the end. Remember, John is the incarnational gospel. God came down from heaven and became man on earth. These verses are even more powerful to me when you hear them with the words of John's prologue in mind. Hear again what John wrote. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. No one has ever seen God. It is God, the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known. The prologue speaks of Jesus' coming into the world and his relationship to God. Now he extends that relationship and gives the disciples a direct look at God and into God as he washes their feet. They do not realize at first what a special gift he is giving them. It is an act that draws the participants to one another. But it is not easy. It can be very uncomfortable. Have you ever just voluntarily washed someone's feet? Maybe you have. Maybe you've done a similar thing for a parent or a spouse or a child out of love for them. But do it to just anybody? That's hard. But that's Jesus' point. Love can be hard if we make it so. But we are called to love just the same. And sometimes love must take us out of our comfort zone. We are realizing that now more than ever. We are finding ourselves way out of our comfort zones in lots of ways. Usually when we love someone, we do more and more for them to show our love. Now we're being asked to do fewer things in order to show love. Doing less means doing more. It's all very unusual. Washing someone's feet may take us out of our comfort zone, and maybe it wouldn't be so bad, but having your own feet washed by someone else is another story. You have to bear a part of yourself to someone else. You are exposed, vulnerable, and that's the point. At that very moment of opening yourself up to someone else, you let love in. Jesus finds that point and calls us into a relationship with him and with God. Jesus gives love freely, and sometimes we simply have to sit back and accept it just as freely as it is given. It is only in allowing someone to serve you that you accept them fully, and only in serving others do you make yourself wholly available to them. We have an opportunity before us right now, an opportunity to take this time in which we have been asked to do less, to build relationships with those around us. We have been given a chance to spend a lot of time with the people with whom we live, and we need to make the best of that time. We've also been told we can't be with others, loved ones, family, friends. So we have to learn to build those relationships in different ways. Video conferences, phone conferences, live streaming, and the list goes on. This may be the most time any of us have spent in video meetings or family gatherings or social happy hours, all digitally. In all this, we are still building relationships, renewing old friendships, saying the things we haven't been able to say until now, showing our love through reaching out in the only ways we can right now. We can't follow Jesus' example and wash one another's feet through our screens. But isn't that kind of what we're doing anyway? Aren't we reaching out in love and being a host and welcoming others in and showing hospitality? We are. We may not realize it because it's in unusual ways, but we are. Jesus is about to go to the cross and die in order to save us. What we may not see in this story is that the disciples are already saved through the foot washing because they are in a relationship with God. They share in Jesus through this act, knowing they are loved to the full extent that Jesus can love them. They are part of him, and by that they are already saved, even before Jesus dies on the cross. We cannot be in a time before the cross, but we can know that salvation is ours not only in the cross, but in our relationship with Christ and with one another. If we love one another, we love Christ, and we do what he calls us to do. Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am, Jesus says. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. If we were all gathered here in this space at this moment, we would be about to do something beautiful. We would be about to wash one another's feet. It might have been uncomfortable, but it is precisely in that uncomfortableness that love and grace can come in. And it would be up to you to choose to accept this gesture of love. It is up to you to choose to allow Jesus to penetrate whatever walls or stumbling blocks you put up, and to freely accept his love and his invitation to be in a relationship with one another, with him and with God. Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table and began to wash the disciples' feet. Will you accept this love so freely given to you this night? Amen.